So let's imagine that this is our newly trained child welfare professional, fresh out of their pre-service training. We've just hired them. Again, unlike many of these other safety critical settings that I use as examples, places like aviation and healthcare, our professionals don't spend a lot of time in pre-professional training before they come to us. In fact, it's only about 20% of all child welfare professionals that actually have a social work degree. Most have maybe some related degree or just the willingness to come do this work. And so it's our responsibility then to train them and importantly to keep them around. And so all these discussions about these influences and the role of burnout and secondary trauma, many of those things are very important for us to understand because we need folks to stick around because absent all that pre-professional training, we need them to build experience to be good at their work. And so we need to retain them. So imagine now we drop this professional into this space that Cook and Rasmussen describe as work as imagined. This is our best practices, our policies, how we drew it up, how we thought it would work. And then there are these very predictable pressures that push in on this child welfare professional in this space that we call work as imagined. Things like the economic constraints of budget cuts and having limited resources in the public sector, being frequently asked to do more with less, shifting service arrays or shifting priorities that draw resources from one place to another. We know there are operational constraints that are really predictable in our work that press in on this space. Things like high caseloads, turnover, the paperwork burden that we all carry. Maybe not well understood in child welfare is we know that fatigue is an issue. Many of our systems in child welfare don't have a second shift. We might have professionals that work very late into the night and are expected to come to work the next day. This is different than other safety critical settings that I've compared us to because pilots can't just fly as long as they want to. They effectively have a pitch count and are pulled off the airplane when they've flown a certain number of hours. Surgeons can't just work as long as they want to. We probably don't have a good understanding of the role fatigue plays in our child welfare professionals, but it's certainly an important influence. So these things can kind of press in on this newly minted professional who already has all of these things going on that are influencing their decision making. And it can push them out beyond this margin that Cook and Rasmussen call the margin of error, or the safety margin. And it's in this space of unmitigated risk that we oftentimes see things bad happening. And so we believe, and the research would support, that these organizations in these safety critical settings, these organizations that have sometimes been described as high reliability organizations that are able to do really complex work in trying settings over long periods of time without significant failures. So commercial airlines in the United States, wildland firefighters. We believe that these kinds of settings that develop what we call a safety culture and collaborative team decision-making are really good at keeping their professionals right inside this margin in the space we call work as done. Never perfect, never work as imagined, but inside that margin where we know bad things happen. So we borrow and adapt a model from Cook and Rasmussen who look at systems dynamics to describe, again, this complexity of how our professionals are influenced by a number of factors and then what happens when we drop them into the system that we want them to work in.